My wife declined intimacy, so I distanced myself, emotionally, physically, and mentally. I withdrew my affection, care, and devotion, but her reaction was completely unforeseen. Marriage, in my understanding, is built on trust, mutual love, and compromise, or so I thought. My wife, Emily, and I had been married for 7 years. Like any couple, we had our share of highs and lows. However, it wasn't until a few months ago that the cracks in our relationship became undeniable. Initially, the signs were subtle. The late nights she spent glued to her phone, her waning interest in our conversations, and the increasing avoidance of physical closeness. I chalked it up to exhaustion or stress. After all, both of us had demanding careers and packed schedules. One evening, I decided to confront the issue head-on. "Emily," I began, striving to keep my voice steady, "I feel like we're drifting apart. You seem distant, and I don't know how to fix it. What's wrong?" She looked up from her phone, exhaling deeply, as though she had anticipated this moment. "There's nothing wrong," she replied tersely. I don't feel like I owe you intimacy. It's not something you're entitled to." Her words struck me like a heavy blow. I wasn't demanding intimacy. I was seeking the connection, the bond we used to cherish. "It's not about entitlement," I said softly. "It's about us, about staying close, emotionally and physically." But Emily wasn't receptive. She rolled her eyes and replied, "Look, intimacy isn't the only thing in a marriage. If that's all you care about, then maybe you need to reevaluate your priorities." I was floored. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who used to hold my hand and murmur sweet words in the stillness of the night. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. Hoping things would improve, I let it go for the night, though deep inside, I sensed something irreversible had shifted. Over the following weeks, her words haunted me. "I don't owe you intimacy." If that's what she believed, what exactly did I owe her? Love? Dedication? Loyalty? Marriage is meant to be a partnership. But ours was beginning to feel alarmingly one-sided. I continued fulfilling my responsibilities as a husband, but the emptiness within me grew. I began questioning if my efforts even mattered. One evening, I arrived home to find Emily laughing on the phone with a friend. She barely acknowledged my presence. When I sat at the dinner table, I noticed a half-eaten meal for one sitting cold. It had been weeks since she had cooked for both of us, a gesture she once enjoyed doing. That night, I made a decision. If she truly believed intimacy wasn't something she owed me, then maybe I no longer owed her the things I had been giving freely, my love, my care, and my commitment. I began pulling back. I stopped asking about her day, ceased the small gestures like preparing her favorite coffee in the morning, and avoided fixing things around the house. I spent more time at work or with friends, steering clear of the growing tension at home. It wasn't spiteful. It was my way of coping. If she didn't want to be an equal partner in this marriage, why should I shoulder all the effort? At first, Emily didn't seem to notice my withdrawal. She continued her routine, her phone always in hand. Her responses curt and dismissive. Hours were spent scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows, while I busied myself with work or mindlessly browsing online. Days turned into weeks, and the rift between us deepened. Yet, she made no attempt to address it, which only solidified my resolve. One evening, I walked into the house and found Emily sitting in the living room, her phone in hand as usual. But something about her demeanor seemed different, almost uneasy. I walked past her to the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and sat on the couch without a word. "Hey," she said after a brief silence, her voice hesitant. I glanced up briefly. "Hey," I responded, keeping my tone neutral as I settled down, scrolling through my own phone. She hesitated, then set her phone aside. "You've been really quiet lately," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Is something wrong?" I didn't lift my eyes from the screen. "I guess I've just been preoccupied," I replied in a flat tone. "Preoccupied with what?" she asked, leaning slightly toward me, Her interest peaked for the first time in weeks. Work, friends, life, I answered simply, accompanied by a nonchalant shrug. Emily frowned, her brows furrowing in evident confusion. You don't even ask about my day anymore. It's like you don't care. Finally, I looked up and met her gaze for the first time that evening. I thought that's what you wanted, I said calmly. You made it clear that certain aspects of this marriage aren't owed. I assumed that applied across the board. Her face fell, and for the first time, I caught a glimpse of vulnerability in her expression. That's not what I meant, she murmured, her voice trembling. I didn't think you'd take it this far. Placing my phone down, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Emily, do you even realize how distant you've been? How hard it's been to feel like I'm the only one putting effort into keeping this marriage alive. I paused, searching her eyes. You said intimacy wasn't owed, but a marriage isn't about obligations. It's about mutual effort, shared love. For months, I've felt like I'm in this alone. Tears welled in her eyes, and she remained silent for a moment before whispering, I didn't realize I was pushing you away. I thought I was protecting myself. Protecting yourself from what? I asked, genuinely baffled. From getting hurt, she admitted, her voice cracking. I've been feeling disconnected too, but instead of talking to you, I built walls. And now, I don't know how to tear them down. Her honesty caught me off guard. I leaned back, letting her words sink in. For so long, I had been consumed by my own feelings of rejection and loneliness that I hadn't stopped to consider her perspective. Emily, I'm not perfect, I said after a pause. But I can't do this alone. If we're going to make this work, we both have to try. You have to meet me halfway. She nodded slowly, using her sleeve to wipe away her tears. I don't want to lose you, she said, her voice trembling. I've been scared. Scared to admit how unhappy I've been, scared of how much we've changed. But I want to try, if you do. Hearing her say that felt like a weight being lifted off my chest. For the first time in months, it felt like we were finally on the same page, even if only slightly. I want to try too, I said softly. But we need to communicate, Emily. We can't keep shutting each other out. That conversation extended late into the night. For the first time in what felt like forever, we truly talked. Emily confessed that she had felt overwhelmed and unappreciated, while I shared how her rejection and indifference had left me feeling invisible. In the days that followed, we started taking small steps to mend our relationship. It wasn't easy. Old habits are hard to break, and there were moments when we both reverted to our defensive tendencies. But we made a conscious effort to communicate openly, even when it felt uncomfortable. One evening, a few weeks later, Emily surprised me by cooking dinner, a dish she knew I loved. It wasn't perfect, but it was a clear gesture of her trying. Afterward, I helped her clean up, something I hadn't done in a while, and we sat together on the couch. Thank you, I said, looking at her sincerely. For what? She asked, a small, genuine smile appearing on her lips. For trying, I replied. It means a lot. She reached out, taking my hand, a gesture that felt both foreign and familiar. I know I have a long way to go, she said, her voice soft. But I'm glad we're doing this together. Over time, we began to rebuild the foundation of our relationship. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about the small things, a kind word, a thoughtful act, a shared laugh. Slowly but surely, we started to find our way back to one another. Looking back, I realized the turning point wasn't solely about Emily's reaction to my withdrawal. It was about both of us recognizing the patterns that had led to our disconnection and choosing to make a change. Marriage isn't about keeping score or determining who owes what. It's about mutual effort, understanding, and the willingness to grow together. As we sat on the couch that night, holding hands and discussing the future, I felt a renewed sense of hope. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, I truly believed we could make it work.